Your Excellencies, colleagues, professors, distinguished webinar participants, I'm pleased to take part in today's discussion on the Global Civilization Initiative. In fact, those who have been closely following the recent events of the BRIX Institute have had a valuable opportunity to gain a comprehensive impression of the President Xi Jinping's ideas. Ideas that draw on China's millennia-old school of thought, ideas underpinned by the growing power of the People's Republic, and through their unifying agenda, ideas of particular value in today's divided world. I believe that in order to better understand the scope and significance of the Global Civilization Initiative, so broadly presented by my distinguished Chinese colleague, we should also consider the overall context. As a Belarusian, I will offer you the perspective of a country like Belarus, medium in size, but certainly not in importance. Looking back at the unipolar moment that followed the end of the Cold War, it is fair to say that the West experienced kind of euphoria. This was best expressed by Francis Fukuyama's famous end of history narrative. The victory of the ideology of so-called liberal democracy was proclaimed as final and indisputable back in the middle of the 90s. The rest of the world, including China and Belarus, which had never sought to erase the Soviet legacy from its history, were told to accept it and submit to it. But even then, ideological coercion alone was not enough to unite a world so complex and diverse. So the familiar tools of labeling, dividing, and then forcibly imposing the Western vision came into play. Today, much of the world, and especially the countries of the Middle East and North Africa and the post-Soviet area, are still paying the price for the crusade for democracy that the West has been waging. Every method has been actively used against those who dared to disagree, from lethal military interventions to seemingly harmless so-called revolutions through social networks. There has been an unprecedented proliferation of illegitimate sanctions that have become almost the main tool in the arsenal for dealing with dissenting states, including Belarus. But even at the height of the unipolar moment, the West did not have an ideological monopoly. There was indeed an alternative to Pax Americana under the banner of liberal democracy. And it did not lie in yet another Western notion of clash of civilizations put forward by Samuel Huntington, which Ambassador referred in his speech to. The alternative to the clash and subsequent forceful unification was dialogue and peaceful diversity. Dialogue and peaceful diversity of civilizations. Perceptions of the world that was growing more diverse and of its implications for international politics began to take shape almost 3 decades ago. The 1994 report of the Commission on Global Governance put together by the United Nations, titled Our Global Neighborhood, recognized the emerging trend of growing diversity and called for, I quote, a new kind of dialogue among civilizations. In 1997, Iran stepped forward with the idea of dialogue of civilizations, which emphasized the imperative of positive interaction dialogue and understanding among cultures and religions. Building on the initiative, the United Nations designated the year 2001 as the year of dialogue among civilizations. In its wake, Turkey and Spain launched at the United Nations a dialogue within the frame of the Alliance of Civilizations initiative. So the idea was very much in the air. Belarus, like China, has spoken in favor of these ideas. As a firm supporter of the principles of the UN Charter based on the postulate of non-interference in the internal affairs of other states, Belarus respects the choice of peoples for systems of government and social political order. We believe that any nation that does not pose a threat to international security and whose government works for the development of its own people should have the right to freely enjoy all the benefits of international cooperation without any restrictions, sanctions, or preconditions. In this context, the President of Belarus proposed from the rostrum of the 2005 UN Summit to recognize the diversity of ways of progressive development as a value of human civilization. This initiative was a natural complement to the efforts of Belarus and the majority of UN member states to build a more fair world order and strengthen international law. My country's initiative was incorporated into a number of documents adopted under the auspices of the UN and the non-aligned movement. Last autumn, Belarus proposed a practical step, specifically for the United Nations to draft a charter for the world's diversity in the 21st century, whereby all member states in a concerted manner would be able to set out some key principles for governing international life in a non-hegemonic and very diverse world. That is why we have been moving in the same direction, together with a lot of other countries. We've been moving in the same direction with our Chinese friends. The ground was ripe for Belarus to welcome with satisfaction and hope the Global Civilization Initiative put forward by the leader of the People's Republic of China in March this year. And not only because of the conceptual clarity and coherence of the four aspects of joint advocacy. The many years of successful implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as the Global Development Initiative, suggest that these proposals of President Xi will be institutionally reinforced and quickly take the form of concrete projects that people and countries need. In fact, some of the projects were mentioned in the speech of my distinguished colleague ambassador of China. Belarus has become one of the first countries to join the Belt and Road Initiative and to support global development and global security initiatives. Therefore, Beijing and other nations can firmly count on us as participants in the Global Civilization Initiative.